The limestone tasted like copper and ash. Captain Ryan Harris pressed his spine against the ridgeline, felt the stone bite through Kevlar and fabric into muscle. Somewhere overhead, a PKM machine gun hammered out 6 round bursts. Disciplined, controlled. Nothing like the spray and pray you'd expect from valley fighters. Rock chips exploded inches from his face. He didn't flinch. Flinching got you killed. Contact right, contact right. Petty Officer Jackson Cole's voice cut through the chaos from 10 meters away, muffled by the boulder he'd wedged himself behind. His M4 spoke twice. A wet scream followed, then silence, then more gunfire. Harris keyed his radio. Blackbird 6 Delta 1. We are Winchester at grid November Kilo 4728. Heavy contact. Request immediate CAS. Static answered. White noise and something underneath it. Electronic whine, maybe jamming, maybe just the mountains eating the signal. He tried again. Same result. They'd walked straight into it. Intelligence had promised a clear valley. High-value target 3 kilometers north in the cave systems. Standard direct action. Get in, confirm, call it in. Instead, they'd found 40 fighters in prepared positions with interlocking fields of fire. The ambush had been surgical. Someone had known they were coming, or the enemy had gotten lucky in all the worst ways. Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Marcus Webb Lowe crawled over his med pack scraping stone. Mason's hit through and through left femur. I've got pressure, but he's bleeding fast. Harris risked a look. Petty Officer Derek Mason lay in a shallow depression between 2 boulders. Face the color of old newspaper. Blood pooled black beneath his leg, despite Webb's hands pressing gauze into the wound, despite the tourniquet cinched tight enough to make bone creak. How long? Webb's jaw worked. Hour if I can keep him stable. Less if we move. An RPG shrieked overhead and detonated 30 meters behind them. The pressure wave punched Harris in the chest. Small rocks rained down. He counted heads through the dust. 6 operators. Mason down, Webb occupied. 4 rifles against an unknown number of enemy fighters who owned the high ground and had them zeroed. The math didn't work. Chief, Harris called to Senior Chief Nathan Pierce, wedged behind a natural stone wall 15 meters left with Cole and Petty Officer Brandon Mitchell. Yeah, Skipper. We need to move or we're dead. Can you see a route to that ravine at 10 o'clock? Pierce popped up for half a heartbeat. Dropped his round sparked off stone. Negative. They've got it covered, at least 2 positions. We'd be in the open 20 meters. Harris pulled his map, already memorizing terrain from their approach. The valley was a kill funnel, steep walls on 3 sides, 1 exit south now crawling with hostiles. The ravine Pierce had spotted was their only play, but crossing that ground meant casualties. More casualties. His radio crackled. Not command frequency. Something else. A voice cut through the static. Female. Calm. Barely above a whisper. Delta 1. I'm tracking your position. I have eyes on 4 enemy fighting positions. Hold what you have. Harris's heart stopped. He knew that voice. His hand trembled, keying the mic. Who is this? Identify yourself. Calcine Raven. I'm on the western ridge, 1,100 meters from your position. Stay down. The blood drained from his face. Raven. Staff Sergeant Ara Hayes. She'd been killed 8 months ago in Helmand Province. IED strike during exfil. He'd read the casualty report himself, attended the memorial, stood in front of her mother and handed her the folded flag while trying not to break. That's impossible. He breathed into the mic. Focus, Captain. I need you to mark the machine gun position on your 3 o'clock. Training took over. Questions could wait. Right now, that PKM was tearing them apart. Harris pulled his IR laser designator and painted the muzzle flashes on the ridge. The beam was invisible to naked eyes but would burn bright through NVGs or thermals. Marked, he silenced. 10 seconds. 20. Wind picked up, swirling dust and cordite smoke. Then a single rifle shot cracked across the valley. The PKM went silent. Shot confirmed. the voice said. 1,100 meters away and 300 higher, Staff Sergeant Era Hayes lay prone on a shelf of gray stone. Her M2010 ESR rested on its bipod, muzzle brake still radiating heat. Through the Schmidt and Bender scope, she watched the SEAL team, pinned in their defensive position, like pieces scattered on a board. She'd been watching 20 minutes, ever since her handler forwarded the emergency beacon data, and she'd recognized the unit designation. Delta 1. Captain Ryan Harris's team. Of all the SEAL teams operating in Kunar Province, it had to be his. She adjusted her scope's elevation knob, fingers working on muscle memory. Wind 6 miles per hour from the west. Temperature dropping as evening approached. Altitude differential 300 meters. She'd made shots like this 100 times, but never with this much riding on the trigger. Through the scope she watched Harris move. Even at this distance she recognized the way he carried himself. Controlled aggression, constant calculation. He'd always been like that, always thinking 3 moves ahead. They'd been engaged once, briefly. 6 weeks of stolen moments between deployments. Long enough for her to memorize the way he laughed. Long enough to know she'd never find it again. Then Helmand happened. Except Helmand hadn't happened. Not the way the reports said. The IED blast had been real enough. 2 teammates dead. Era thrown 15 meters by the explosion. Body broken in a dozen places. But she hadn't died. The CIA had found her first. Or maybe they'd been watching all along. They'd offered her a choice. Return to normal duty or disappear into a program that didn't officially exist. You have a rare gift, the recruiter had said while she lay in a hospital bed in Germany, legs held together by titanium rods. 97 confirmed kills in 3 years. Perfect record at 1,800 meters. We need people like you for situations where conventional forces can't operate. And if I say no, then you go back to your unit, and we never had this conversation. She'd said yes. Not because of the mission, because going back meant facing Harris and the others, meant explaining why she'd survived when better operators had died. The guilt would have eaten her alive. Better to become a ghost. The CIA gave her a new identity, advanced training, assignments that took her deep into denied territory. For 8 months, she'd been a shadow, operating alone, living off the land, taking shots that changed battles without anyone knowing she existed. It was lonely work, dangerous work, but it was clean. No attachments, no loss. Until today, she'd been 3 valleys away when the call came in. SEAL team in trouble, heavy contact, no air support available due to weather. Standard protocol said maintain operational security. Let the military handle their own problems. But her handler had mentioned the team designation. Delta 1, she'd violated protocol before the transmission ended. Grabbed her rifle and emergency gear and started moving. 90 minutes of hard climbing up trails that would kill most people. But Era had always been comfortable with elevation. The mountains felt like home. Now she lay on her perch watching the man she'd loved through a 10-power scope, preparing to break every rule in the book. Her radio crackled. Not Harris, her handler. Raven, you are not authorized for intervention. Return to base immediately. Era switched off the radio. She found her next target through the scope. Fighter with an RPG launcher creeping around the southern flank. Range 1,400 meters. Wind shifting to 7 miles per hour. She adjusted her aim. 6 inches left, 3 high. Her breathing slowed. Heart rate dropped to 50 beats per minute. The world narrowed to the sight picture, the crosshairs, the gentle squeeze. The rifle bucked. Through the scope, she watched the fighter drop his launcher and collapse. Target 2 down. She whispered into Harris's frequency. Stay alert. More contacts moving on your south side. Where the hell is she? Senior Chief Pierce crawled to Harris's position, keeping his head below the rocks. That's 2 impossible shots in 3 minutes. Harris scanned the western ridge through his rifle scope. Nothing. No muzzle flash, no movement. Whoever Raven was, she had discipline. I don't know, Chief. But right now she's the only reason we're breathing. Another burst of machine gun fire, this time from a new position on the eastern slope. Rounds walked across their perimeter, forcing everyone flat. Rock dust filled the air. Delta 1, new contact. Raven's voice came through calm as before. PKM position on the eastern ridge, approximately 800 meters. 2 personnel. Can you take them? Stand by. The machine gun fired again. Harris saw Petty Officer Mitchell flinch as a round passed so close it tore through the shoulder strap of his tactical vest. The kid was 23 years old, second deployment. His hands shook, changing magazines. Status. I'm good, Captain. That was close. Stay focused. Keep your sector covered. Corpsman Webb appeared at Harris's elbow, face grim. Mason's stable for now, but I need to start an IV soon or he's going to crash. Bleeding's under control, but he's losing fluid fast. How long can you wait? 30 minutes, maybe 45. Harris checked his watch. They'd been pinned down 22 minutes. Felt like hours. The sun was dropping toward the western peaks. 90 minutes until full dark. If they could hold until then, they might slip away under night vision. But that meant keeping everyone alive 90 more minutes against an enemy content to grind them down with superior firepower. The eastern machine gun opened up again. Harris watched the muzzle flash, trying to fix the position. It was partially hidden behind a boulder, difficult shot even for a world-class marksman. Then silence. Both targets neutralized. Raven reported. 3 confirmed kills. But you have movement in the southern approach. Count 8 hostiles, 300 meters out. They're trying to flank you. Harris rolled to his side and aimed his rifle at the southern approach, a narrow defile between 2 rock formations. Perfect ambush country. If the enemy got into those rocks, they'd be able to fire directly into the SEAL position from 20 meters away. Chief, we need to stop that flanking movement or we're done. On it, Pierce Lowe crawled to Cole's position. Jackson, Brandon, we're going to establish a firing line covering that southern approach. Wait for them to show themselves. What about the sniper? Cole asked, can she take them? Harris keyed his radio. Raven, can you engage those southern contacts? Negative. Wrong angle from my position. You'll need to handle it. Copy. Harris moved to join Pierce and the others. They spread out in a rough line, weapons trained on the defile. The waiting was the worst part. Harris could hear the enemy fighters moving. Scrape of boots on stone, whispered commands in Pashto. A figure appeared at the mouth of the defile. Pierce's rifle cracked twice. The figure fell. Automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions. The insurgents weren't trying to be subtle anymore. They were pushing hard, betting on overwhelming firepower. Harris fired controlled pairs, picking targets. Beside him, Cole and Mitchell did the same. The southern approach became a killing ground. Bodies fell, but more kept coming. Reload? Mitchell shouted. Harris increased his rate of fire, giving the younger operator time to change magazines. An RPG whooshed from the rocks, aimed directly at Harris's position. He had half a second to think this is it before the warhead exploded in midair 30 feet away. The shockwave still knocked him flat, but he was alive. Shrapnel rattled against the stones around him. Intercepted the RPG. Raven's voice was slightly strained. That was closer than I like. Harris coughed dust and blood. His ears rang, but nothing felt broken. Thanks for the save. Don't thank me yet. You've got more company incoming from the north. 8 months earlier, Staff Sergeant Ara Hayes had been part of a 6-person reconnaissance team operating in Helmand Province. Their mission: identify Taliban supply routes along the Pakistani border. Standard recon: get in, observe, report, get out. The IED had been buried at a crossroads they'd passed through a dozen times. Someone planted it during the night. When the lead vehicle rolled over it, the shape charge turned a 5-ton MRAP into scrap metal. The explosion killed the driver and team leader instantly. Threw Era clear through the air like a rag doll until she hit the ground 40 feet away. She remembered the taste of blood, the way her left leg bent at an angle that defied biology, the sound of small arms fire as the ambush kicked off. Then nothing. She woke 3 days later in Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, Germany. Her body was a map of injuries: compound fracture of the left femur, shattered pelvis, 3 broken ribs, collapsed lung, grade 3 concussion. The doctor said she was lucky to be alive, said she'd probably never walk without a limp, said her combat days were over. On the 4th day, a woman in civilian clothes visited her room, no ID badge. Just a simple question. How far can you shoot? Who are you? Someone who's read your file. 97 confirmed kills. Perfect record at extreme range. That kind of talent is rare. The woman pulled up a chair. We both know you're not going back to standard duty. Your body won't let you. But there's another option. I'm listening. The woman explained a program that didn't exist on paper. Deep reconnaissance snipers operating in denied territory. Solo missions, extreme distances, no support. They needed operators who could survive alone for weeks at a time, living off the land, taking shots conventional forces couldn't make. What's the catch? You disappear. Officially, you died in Helmand. Your family, your friends, your unit, they all believe you're gone. You become a ghost. Era looked at her broken body, thought about going back, facing Harris and the others, the pity in their eyes, the questions she couldn't answer, the guilt that would follow her everywhere. When do I start? The training took 4 months. Physical therapy pushed beyond normal limits. Advanced fieldcraft, survival skills, long-range shooting at distances that seemed impossible. She learned to read terrain like a book, to move through enemy territory like smoke, to make rifle shots at 2,000 meters in 15-mile-per-hour winds. And she learned to be alone. That was the hardest part. No team, no backup, no one to rely on but herself. The CIA psychologist said most operators washed out because of the isolation. Humans were social creatures. Soldiers were tribal creatures. Taking that away broke most people. But Era found she preferred the silence. No one to let down, no one to lose. Just her rifle, and the mission. Her first assignment had been Syria, elimination of a weapons dealer selling to terrorist organizations. She'd set up a hide site 1,600 meters from his compound and waited 3 days without moving. When he finally appeared, she made the shot and disappeared before his security team figured out what happened. After that, Yemen, Somalia, back to Afghanistan. She became a legend among the few people who knew she existed. The Ghost, Angel of Death, Raven, her official call sign, chosen because ravens were scavengers that fed on battlefields. For 8 months she'd lived in the shadows, convinced herself she was fine with it, until today. Until she'd heard Harris's voice on the emergency channel, desperate and running out of options. Until she'd climbed that mountain without hesitation, knowing it might blow her cover and end her career. Some things ran deeper than training. The northern approach was worse than the southern. The terrain gave the attackers more cover, and they were moving fast. Former military, by the look of their tactics, bounding forward in pairs, covering each other, using smoke grenades to obscure movement. Delta 1, you need to reposition. Raven's voice carried an urgency Harris hadn't heard before. They're gonna roll right over you in 5 minutes. Where? Harris demanded. We're surrounded. There's a ravine 70 meters west of your position. It's out of direct line of sight from most of their fighting positions. I can suppress the ones that can see it. Harris looked west. The ravine was a natural cut in the rock, maybe 4 feet wide and deep enough for cover. but getting there meant crossing open ground. 20 seconds of exposure, maybe 30 if someone got hurt. Chief, we're moving to that ravine. Bounding overwatch. Mitchell and Cole go first with Mason. Webb stays with him. You and I cover. Then we follow. Pierce nodded. What about our guardian angel? She says she'll suppress. I believe her. Harris keyed his radio. Raven, we're moving in 60 seconds. I need you to make it rain. Copy. I'll keep their heads down. Move fast. Harris counted down. Mitchell, Cole, go! The two SEALs grabbed Mason, each taking a shoulder. Webb stayed low, moving with them. They broke from cover, half running, half dragging the wounded man across broken ground. Immediately, rifle fire erupted from multiple positions. Harris and Pierce returned fire, putting rounds downrange as fast as they could acquire targets. But the enemy had the advantage, shooting from covered positions while the SEALs were exposed. Then Raven went to work. Her first shot hit an insurgent lining up an RPG. The fighter spun and fell. Her second shot came 3 seconds later. Another fighter who'd exposed himself trying to get a better angle. Then a third. A fourth. She was shooting faster than Harris thought possible at this range. Each shot precisely placed to force the enemy to take cover. Mitchell and Cole reached the ravine. They dragged Mason down into it, Webb sliding in after them. Clear, Mitchell shouted. Go, Harris slapped Pierce on the shoulder. The senior chief sprinted west. Harris laid down suppressive fire, his rifle barking until the magazine ran dry. He slapped in a fresh one and ran. A bullet cracked past his head, so close he felt the sonic boom. Another hit the ground at his feet. 10 more meters. He dove headfirst into the ravine, landing hard on Pierce. Everyone intact. Pierce did a head count. Al present? Webb, how's Mason? Still stable. But we need to stop moving him around. Harris risked a look up. The ravine was maybe 80 meters long, running roughly parallel to the valley wall. It offered good cover from direct fire, but they were still trapped. And the enemy knew where they were now. Raven, we're in the ravine. What's our exit strategy? Her response took longer than before. When it came, her voice was tight. Working on it. Stay low. I've got movement on my position. Someone spotted my muzzle flash. Harris's blood ran cold. Raven, get out of there. Negative. If I move, you're exposed. I can handle this. That's an order, Staff Sergeant. Sorry, Captain. I stopped taking orders 8 months ago. Era had known they'd find her eventually. 5 shots in rapid succession, even with a suppressor. It was only a matter of time before someone triangulated her position. She'd seen the 2 fighters break off from the main group and start climbing toward her ridge 15 minutes ago. Now they were close, maybe 100 meters below her position. She had options. She could displace, pack up her rifle, move to a secondary position 200 meters north. But that would take 10 minutes, and Harris's team didn't have 10 minutes. The insurgents had them bracketed in that ravine. Without her suppressive fire, they'd be overrun in 5 minutes. Or she could stay and fight, deal with the immediate threat, then get back to protecting the SEAL team. It wasn't really a choice. She packed away her M2010 and pulled out her backup weapon, a suppressed HK-416 carbine, better for close-range work. She found a position behind a boulder that gave her a view of the approach route. Then she waited. They came fast. Probably thought they had surprise on their side. The first fighter appeared around a rock outcrop, AK-47 at the ready. Ara put 2 rounds in his chest. The suppressor kept the report quiet. He fell without a sound. The second fighter was smarter. He'd heard his companion fall and gone to ground. Ara scanned the rocks, looking for movement. There, a shadow that didn't match the terrain. She fired 3 rounds. 1 hit. The fighter rolled behind cover, returning fire. His bullets sparked off the rocks around her. Ara shifted position, moving 20 feet to her left. The fighter fired at where she'd been. Amateur mistake. She lined up her sights and waited. Eventually, he had to move. When he did, she was ready. But he wasn't alone. A third fighter, one she hadn't seen, opened fire from her right flank. She felt the impact before she heard the shot. Hot pain lanced through her left shoulder. She rolled away, trying to maintain her grip on the carbine. The fighter advanced, firing on automatic. Era forced herself to focus through the pain. She brought the HK-416 up one-handed and fired. The fighter went down, but more were coming. She could hear them on the slope below. At least 4 more. She keyed her radio, breath coming in short gasps. Delta 1, I'm compromised. Sending you coordinates for extraction point. It's 200 meters south of your position. There's a clearing big enough for a helo. Raven. I'm fine, she lied. Blood soaked through her shirt. Her left arm was useless. But I can't stay on this ridge. Get your team to that clearing. I'll keep the enemy occupied. We're not leaving you. Yes, you are. Era pulled out a smoke grenade with her right hand. That's not a request, Captain. Get your people home. She didn't wait for his response. She pulled the pin and tossed the grenade down the slope. Purple smoke billowed up, marking her position. The insurgents would come for her now. They'd forget about the SEAL team in the ravine. All their attention would be on the lone sniper who'd been killing their fighters. It was exactly what she wanted. Era changed magazines one-handed, a maneuver she'd practiced 1,000 times. Her shoulder screamed with every movement. She could feel blood pooling in her tactical vest, but she'd been hurt before. She knew how to push through pain. The first fighter came up through the smoke. Era shot him. Then another. She was bleeding out slowly, but she could still hold a rifle. Still pull a trigger. That would have to be enough. Her radio crackled. Raven, Blackbird 6 is inbound for extract. ETA 5 minutes. Give us a beacon, she smiled despite the pain. Tell them to pick up Delta 1. I'll wait my turn, Raven. Make it count, she whispered, then switched off the radio. The smoke cleared. More fighters were coming. Era settled into a firing position and started counting targets. Harris led his team south through the ravine, every instinct screaming at him to go back for Raven. But she was right. His first duty was to his men. Mason was dying. Webb could barely keep him stable. If they didn't get to that extraction point, they'd all die here. The ravine opened onto a boulder field that provided scattered cover. They moved in bounds, covering each other, expecting contact at any second. But the insurgents had shifted their attention. Harris could hear the firefight on the western ridge. Single shots from Raven's position, answered by automatic weapons fire from multiple directions. She was buying them time with her life. There. Cole pointed to a flat area ahead, the clearing Raven had mentioned. It was rimmed by rocks but open enough for a helicopter to land. Not ideal, but it would work. They reached the clearing in 2 minutes. Pierce pulled out an IR strobe and activated it, placing it in the center of the open space. The strobe was invisible to the naked eye, but would show up bright as day to the inbound helo's optics. Blackbird 6. Harris called on the command frequency. We are at the extraction point, marking with IR strobe. Delta 1, Blackbird 6. We have visual on your strobe. Inbound from the east, ETA 2 minutes. Harris looked back at the ridge. The gunfire had slowed. Either Raven had run out of ammunition or... He refused to finish that thought. The Black Hawk came in fast and low, rotors beating the air into submission. The pilot flared at the last second, wheels kissing the ground. The crew chief waved them forward. Let's go. 30 seconds. Pierce and Cole carried Mason to the helo. Webb climbed in after them. Mitchell followed. Harris stood at the edge of the clearing, rifle pointed back the way they'd come. Captain, we need to go, the crew chief shouted. There's someone else. Harris yelled back. We need to go get her. Negative. We've got 15 hostiles moving on this position. If we don't leave now, we're all dead. Pierce appeared at the helicopter door. Ryan, we have to go. Harris looked at the ridge one more time. The gunfire had stopped completely. Purple smoke still drifted on the wind. He keyed his radio, knowing it was futile. Raven, if you can hear me, we're at the extract point. Come on. Static. Raven, report. Nothing. Pierce grabbed Harris's vest and physically pulled him toward the helicopter. She's gone, Ryan. Don't make her sacrifice meaningless. Harris let himself be dragged aboard. The Black Hawk lifted off immediately, banking hard to the east. Through the open door, he watched the valley fall away. Watched the ridge where Raven had made her stand. Watched until distance and smoke obscured everything. He'd lost her twice now. The second time hurt worse than the first. Bagram Airfield. 7 days later. Harris sat in a plastic chair outside the base hospital, a cup of cold coffee in his hands. Mason was inside, recovering from surgery. The doctor said he'd keep the leg, but it would be months before he could operate again. Webb had barely left his side, monitoring every aspect of his recovery with the obsessive attention that made corpsmen the backbone of special operations. The rest of the team was scattered. Debriefing, weapons maintenance, the 1,000 small tasks that followed every mission. But Harris couldn't focus on any of it. His mind kept returning to that ridge, to the purple smoke, to the radio silence that had followed. Senior Chief Pierce found him there. Got the after-action report back from intelligence. Confirmed 9 enemy KIA from sniper fire. Another 4 probable. The rest scattered after the firefight. Whoever she was, she took out nearly a third of their force single-handedly. Any sign of her? Pierce shook his head. Search and rescue went up there yesterday. Found her hide site. Found blood. Found expended brass. But no body. Insurgents probably took it. Harris stared at his coffee. She said her call sign was Raven. That's what I told intelligence. They said there's no operator with that call sign in theater. No female snipers operating independently in Kunar province. Officially, she doesn't exist. Then who saved us? Hell if I know. Harris pulled something from his pocket. A single 300 Winchester Magnum round. He'd found it near their position in the ravine. Must have been ejected from Raven's rifle and rolled downhill. Someone had etched tiny letters into the brass casing. He held it up to the light, reading the inscription for the 100th time. Shot confirmed. The handwriting was familiar. He'd seen it before years ago, on notes left in his locker, on letters written from deployment, on the card that had accompanied a photograph she'd given him. The two of them in dress uniform at a formal dinner, smiling like the world was full of possibilities.
What's that?
Pierce asked. Harris closed his hand around the round. Nothing. Just a souvenir. He stood up, suddenly needing to move. Walked the perimeter of the base, his mind churning. Ara was dead. He'd read the report. Attended the service. But that voice on the radio, those impossible shots, that inscription. Ghost stories, he told himself. Stress playing tricks on his memory. The woman on that ridge had been a contractor, maybe, or a CIA asset they didn't have clearance to know about. It happens sometimes. Operators from other agencies working in the same battle space without coordination. But that handwriting. Harris returned to his quarters and pulled out a footlocker from under his bunk. Inside were personal effects he rarely looked at, photographs, letters, a folded flag from his grandfather's funeral. At the bottom was a small box containing everything he had left of Ara. Not much. A photograph, 3 letters. A challenge coin she'd given him for his birthday. He opened one of the letters and compared the handwriting to the inscription on the bullet casing. His hand started shaking. It was a match. CIA headquarters, Langley, Virginia. Same day. Ara woke to the smell of antiseptic and the soft beep of monitoring equipment. Her shoulder was immobilized in a complex brace. An IV line ran into her right arm. Pain medication made her thoughts fuzzy. Easy. A familiar voice. Her handler, the woman who'd recruited her in Germany, sat in a chair beside the bed. You've been out for 36 hours. Emergency surgery to repair your shoulder. You lost a lot of blood. Era's mouth was dry. Did they make it out? The SEAL team? Yes, safely. The wounded one is expected to make a full recovery. Good. You violated protocol, Raven. You exposed your position, engaged a numerically superior force, and broke radio silence with an active duty unit. Any one of those violations would be grounds for removal from the program. Era closed her eyes. So remove me, Wishuld. The handler leaned forward. But your operation in Kunar eliminated a high-value target cell that had been operating in that region for 3 years. The insurgents you engaged were the same group responsible for 6 attacks on coalition forces. Intelligence recovered from the site led to the capture of 3 more cell leaders in Pakistan. By saving that SEAL team, you inadvertently broke apart an entire enemy network. Then why do you sound angry? Because you did it for personal reasons. You saw who was in trouble and you went anyway. That kind of emotional attachment makes you a liability. Era opened her eyes. Are you firing me? The handler studied her for a long moment. No, you're too valuable. But you're going stateside for 6 months while that shoulder heals. Restricted duty. Training new recruits. No deployments. I don't train well. You'll learn. The handler stood up. There's a tablet on the table. Medical shows you can watch during recovery. I suggest the recent segment on the SEAL team rescue in Afghanistan. Quite the dramatic story. After she left, Era pulled the tablet onto her lap and found the news segment. It was from a military affairs program, mostly propaganda and feel-good stories, but they'd covered the Kunar Valley operation. The reporter interviewed Captain Harris in front of a helicopter. Captain, your team was pinned down for nearly 30 minutes. How did you survive? Harris looked tired, older than he had 8 months ago. We had help. Someone was watching out for us. Can you tell us who? No. But if they're watching this, thank you. You saved our lives. The camera zoomed in on his face. Era paused the video. Even through the screen, she could see the questions in his eyes, the uncertainty. He'd figured it out, she realized. Maybe not all of it, but enough. She thought about sending him a message. Some way to let him know she was okay. But that wasn't how this worked. She'd chosen to become a ghost. That meant staying dead, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. Era closed the tablet and stared at the ceiling. 6 months stateside, then back to the shadows. It was the life she'd chosen. But that inscription on the bullet casing, shot confirmed. She'd carved that before the mission, intending to leave it somewhere Harris would find it. A message from beyond the grave, proof that she was watching over him. Maybe it was enough. 4 months later, Zabul Province, Afghanistan. Captain Harris led his team through a narrow canyon, moving toward an intelligence target. They'd received reports of a weapons cache hidden in a cave complex. Standard direct action mission: get in, secure the weapons, call for air support to destroy them. They were 200 meters from the objective when Harris called a halt. Something felt wrong. No birds, no insects. His instincts were screaming ambush. Chief, I don't like this. Pierce scanned the canyon walls. Yeah, I'm getting the same feeling. Want to call it off? Harris considered. They'd come all this way. The intelligence was solid. But that feeling, his radio crackled. Not the command frequency, a different channel. One he'd been monitoring obsessively for 4 months. Delta 1, hold position. The voice was calm, familiar, impossible. You've got 18 hostiles in prepared positions along both canyon walls. This is a kill box. Harris's heart stopped. Raven. Overwatch active, Captain. I've got your 6. Pierce grabbed Harris's arm. Who the hell is that? Harris looked up at the canyon walls, searching for any sign of movement. Nothing. She was out there somewhere, invisible and watching. An old friend. Recommend you pull back 200 meters. Raven continued. I'll handle the welcoming committee. Negative. If there are that many hostiles, you'll be exposed. I don't expose easily. Trust me. Harris thought about the ravine in Kunar, about the impossible shots that had saved their lives, about the woman who died, except she hadn't died. She'd been out there all along, a ghost watching over them. All right, Raven, we're pulling back. But if this goes sideways, it won't. Harris led his team back down the canyon. They took up positions behind cover and waited. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Then a single rifle shot echoed off the canyon walls. Then another, then a third. 3 down, Raven reported. Wait for it. The canyon erupted in chaos. The remaining insurgents opened fire, trying to locate the shooter, but they were firing at shadows. Another shot cracked across the distance. Another fighter dropped. It took Raven 6 minutes to neutralize the entire ambush. 18 targets, 18 shots. Perfect execution at extreme range. When the canyon fell silent, Harris led his team forward. They found the weapons cache exactly where intelligence had said it would be. They also found 18 bodies scattered along the canyon walls, each killed by a single precision shot. Raven, you still there? Harris asked. We need to meet. Face to face. A long pause. That's not how this works, Captain. I know it's you, Era. I've known since Kunar. Another pause. Longer this time. Then you understand why we can't meet. Some things have to stay buried. I disagree. This isn't a debate. I made a choice 8 months ago. I have to live with it. Harris stared up at the canyon walls, knowing she was out there somewhere. Close enough to hear him. Far enough to vanish before he could find her. I understand, he said finally. But Ara, thank you. For everything. Just doing my job. He could hear the smile in her voice. Stay safe, Captain. The mountains have eyes. The radio went silent. Harris stood there for a long moment, the desert wind tugging at his uniform. Then he turned to his team. Let's finish this mission and get home. As they moved toward the cave complex, he glanced back one more time at the canyon walls. For just a moment he thought he saw a glint of sunlight off glass. A scope maybe, watching from a distant ridge. Then it was gone, but he knew she was there. And somehow that was enough. Senior Chief Pierce walked beside him. That ghost of yours, she's something else. Harris allowed himself a small smile. Yes, she is. Think we'll see her again? I don't know, Chief, but I hope so. They continued up the canyon, 6 operators moving through hostile territory. And high above, invisible on a ridge that didn't appear on any map, Staff Sergeant Ara Hayes watched through her scope, tracking their movement, counting their steps, ready to take the shot if danger appeared. Some Guardians wore armor and carried flags. Others worked in shadow, their names forgotten, their sacrifices unrecorded. But they were there, always watching, always ready. In the mountains, the wind carried whispers of her passage, and somewhere in the distance, if you listened carefully, you might hear the ghost of a voice saying 2 words that meant everything. Shot confirmed.